Cyclone Gina is dying off near New Caledonia. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 21st. So right now we have two former tropical cyclones that we're looking at now. Gina, which has just died off near New Caledonia, has sort of lost its full circulation, and still we're monitoring the extratropical remnants of Yakecan, which is not far from Tristan da Cunha. 11 days until hurricane season in the North Atlantic though, and nothing is active here, and I may as well spoil it and just tell you that there's nothing active and nothing expected anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere areas, so I can talk a little bit more about the Southern Hemisphere. So what we saw in Cyclone Yakecan, you may have seen in our previous updates. Our latest is that the track has been revised to have a subtropical storm peak rather than what we first had as a tropical storm peak. That was decided a couple of days ago actually, but still a rather interesting storm that passed by the coast of Brazil that happened a couple of days ago now. And as for Gina, it is actually displaying winds near 60 miles per hour on the from the latest ASCAP pass, although as mentioned, convection down towards the southeast, it's sort of turning frontal and has really lost its way in terms of its circulation towards the northwestern side of it. Elsewhere though, nothing is active as I mentioned. Here is some satellite imagery from GOES 16 of what's left of Yakecan in the South Atlantic. It's headed right down there now. It's at a decent latitude. It must be headed quite close to 40 degrees south now. It's around 20 degrees west still. That's moving southeastwards away from the GOES 16 viewing area, and what's left of it will pass quite comfortably to the south of southern Africa, and of course have its usual way dying off in the extratropical zones. So here's the North Atlantic satellite right now. You can see a lot of convection there along the coast of Florida, ballooning out into the open ocean, but generally a very disorganized picture. Dry air interspersed with a few areas of moisture, tropical zone looking fairly quiet. The Eastern Pacific, the same too. And there's only that tiny little air pocket there, you could call it, or a moisture pocket that's headed up towards the northeast, and the tropics fairly subdued. This is the Western Pacific right now. You can see interesting up towards the top right hand corner there, it looks like a rotating potential cyclone, but looking at pressure estimates we're not seeing anything out of the ordinary there, but certainly an interesting feature. Elsewhere, not much going on. A few thunderstorms occurring over the Philippines as the monsoon appears to have set itself there now. And so too in India, which is blowing up. A few thunderstorms today, you just saw that there. But interesting little system that moved through the coast of Myanmar in the last 24 hours, which was briefly marked 93B. And also down there in the South Pacific, of course, you can see how Gina has been shifting along, and it has been losing its cloud tops, but has been drawing just a little bit closer to New Caledonia. Sea surface temperatures are fairly warm as usual in the Eastern Pacific, but getting warmer, 30 degrees plus. Look at the Atlantic and the Gulf, and you can see that almost like a crocodile's mouth there, extending into the Gulf of Mexico. 28 degrees, pushing 30 degrees there. 30 degrees a little bit in along the southern coast of Cuba. Temperatures gradually rising as we expect at this time of year, but at the moment things looking fairly normal. Indian Ocean piping hot, 30 degrees plus. The South China Sea there also very warm, 30 degrees. Still got temperatures needing to rise along the southern coast of China yet though. The Philippine Sea is still getting fairly warm too there, around 28 degrees, pushing 30 on the eastern coast of the Philippines now, and that is going to be getting warmer and toastier as we move along through the season. Even down there where Gina is, temperatures are still marginal, around 26 degrees Celsius there, but it will be leaving those areas shortly. Well, as we look at anomalies, the La Nina effect is out in full swing, as you can see there. Interesting to note that the Gulf Coast of the United States sea surface temperatures significantly warmer than average there, but in the rest of the Atlantic it is hit and miss. There are a few areas that are indeed below average. But in the areas that matter, this is the ocean heat content right now, and a nice little pool expanding in the Gulf of Mexico there, the loop current. The Eastern Pacific, you've got those two little areas, so those are the places where you'll see a potential strong hurricane or two in the early season, if that indeed happens. So far it's been quiet. Western Pacific, as you'd expect there, quite decent. So what do the computer models have in store over the next 5 days? Well, on the GFS model, the South China Sea here, it develops something very near the end of the run, but this doesn't have any support from any of the other models. That's why we've not marked it at our outset. But this is what the GFS is showing, just the spin up of a rather large system. Some suggest that it may be as a result of that system that moved through Myanmar just now. And here is Myanmar, that area looking right now, but the Bay of Bengal region might spin up another quick system there along the same area. See those tropical storm force winds flaring up towards the end of that 5-day period, but it's pretty unlikely that we'll see any tropical cyclone genesis out of that. But it's interesting to see as you watch it again here how it rotates a little bit as it does so with those tropical storm force winds. Well, you never can be too sure. The South Pacific then, you can see Gina there, dies off fairly soon, at least with its tropical storm force winds. It's already no longer got its circulation in order, and there it goes, gets completely sucked up by the next front that comes and collects it off from Australia and down towards the southeast, well away from any other land areas. Strong tropical cyclone just leaving New Zealand there off shot, and then you can see once again the remnants of Gina there ploughing along. And the South Atlantic, you can see what's left of Yakecan there, briefly at the beginning there, showing near hurricane force winds, and then off it goes well south of South Africa, and the elements can get pretty crazy down there. You see some very large extratropical systems that sometimes form in the South Atlantic and into the South Indian Zone down there. Fascinating to see how that happens, and you get some enormous wind fields down there too, as you can see there on that imagery. So still, we could see some significant precipitation still from Gina, even though it's no longer a cyclone. You can see those red areas are pretty close to land, just about holding off those small islands of New Caledonia. Inside those red areas, you've got there 12 inches of rain, that's around 300 millimeters. Probably though, you're only going to get maximums of 3 on the main island of New Caledonia, that's around 75 millimeters, but offshore down towards the southeast you could see double that. So in the mid-range we could be seeing a tropical cyclone in the Eastern Pacific. It is that time of year of course, so we are sort of expecting it to happen soon. The Eastern Pacific does react like clockwork when the season comes around, and the GFS showing there just within the 10-day period a tropical cyclone forming just to the south of eastern Mexico. That's the Oaxaca area, I believe it is, and quite far east for a storm, but usually you get that in the early season rather than later on. There's the Western Pacific. The GFS wants that system that no other models depict showing developing, becoming a significant storm, nearly a typhoon status, certainly severe tropical storm in the Western Pacific local scales, and then going on to impact Taiwan towards the 8-9 day period. That's May 28th there for a potential landfall, and then a tiny system forming behind that in the strait between Taiwan and the Philippines. Well, at this point, that's all the normal stuff done with, so now the crazy things, and that means I can tell you about our merch store. You can scan that QR code there, and that will tell you all about what we've got going. We have all kinds of things, our merchandise products, but also you can request your own season animations now, and storm animations on there too. Just follow that link. Alright, I ran a lot over there. This is the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific in the very long range, silly range at this point. Eastern Pacific throws that storm into Mexico almost like a Hurricane Barbara situation of 2013, and then the Atlantic has a gyric mess, I suppose, trying to develop as it moves along the western coast of Florida and then into the Gulf Coast region. This here is the Central Pacific, and you can see a low pressure system there. Does it become something? Let's watch it. Oh, out pops a tropical cyclone there, a tiny one, but sorry Hone fans, that is just west of the international date line. So I really hope that happens, because that would be absolutely hilarious. And you still won't get your tropical storm Hone. That is at the very end of the run though, so I don't think we'll get anything out of that, period. Well then, on this day, a much more serious situation was unfolding in 1976 on May 21st. Olga was making landfall as a Category 3 in the Philippines, but the main story was Pamela, which was making landfall on Guam at the same time as a Category 4 storm. May 1976, nowhere near the peak season, and you get two major typhoons making landfall in two different locations on the same day. What a time that would have been to be alive in the storm tracking community. Incidentally, nothing else was active around the world on that date, in that year at least. So right now in 2022, here we are. 26 storms have formed so far this year. The first name on the Atlantic naming list is Alex. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Agatha. In the Central Pacific, we're still looking out for Hone. Over in the Western Pacific, the next name now is Chaba. In the North Indian Ocean, we're now looking for Sitrang after Asani a few weeks ago. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment whilst we wait for the next slide, which will tell us that the next name in the Australian region is Darian. The Southwest Indian Ocean, if it has time, Ledlama. And in the South Pacific, could there be another one? The next name is Harley. That's all for now. We'll have another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.